Okay, so today I'm going to show you guys a little bit differently how I set up my After Effects files for a project like an explainer video. So right now I'm just setting up my file structure and then making my conform comp, which is the comp where I'm going to put all of my shots so things are separate but I can render them all together. Now I'm importing my Boardomatic. I have to look for it because I don't know where it was, but okay, found my Boardomatic. Now I'm importing it, making it smaller than the rest of the comp and making it a guide layer so I can just use it as reference. Now I'm going to go through and mark where all of my different shots are. And this is sort of up to you. You can pick what you think goes together. And that's what I did here. So I'm just pulling out a marker from the side there and dragging it onto my comp. You can also do this by right-clicking and selecting marker. Now I'm going through and renaming these markers so they will match the names of my pre-comps, and what I like to do is just name them the shot number that they are. So this one's shot 3 and then doing a identifier. So shot 3 awards, shot 4 Hollywood. So I know at a quick glance what each shot has in it. Okay, and now I'm just trimming my composition so it fits, so it's not too long. And now I'm importing my Photoshop file. So I took the comp that was imported automatically and renamed it to match my shot markers. And now I'm just getting rid of some of the things that I don't really need in this Photoshop file, and I'm going to remake in After Effects. So I'm deleting some layers here and I'm making a new solid for my background layer. I'm making my color palette that I'll use this in all of my comps. Now I'm going to drag it in and make it a guide layer. And now I'm going to draw on these blobs that I'm going to draw a few on, so because I know that when I animate this, I'll want more than one shape layer within here just to make it look more natural. Here I'm just trying to get this to look as much like the other comp without that blob Photoshop layer because I'm going to end up deleting. And remember, I'm going to animate these like I animated the blobs in the texture and stylization demo. Now I'm importing my textures. I'm pre-composing the paper texture because I want to use the animation on all of my pre-comps. Making it the right size. And I'm animating it. And so the good thing about using this as a pre-comp is that means I only have to animate this texture one time and it will be consistent throughout my piece. Just using a simple expression to get the animation to loop. For some reason it didn't work, but that worked. And just setting it to multiply. Now my light texture. And now I'm importing that yellow paint texture. Pre-composing because I'm going to animate it one time and use it throughout my piece. I like to color code my layers, so just the ones that I don't touch, I'm turning off and locking. And I'm trimming the comp so it fits into the markers that I have in my conform, and I put my Boardomatic in here so I can reference it as I'm animating in this comp. And for color coding, I color code things according to what belongs together. And I like to do it rainbow, but you don't have to do it that way. So the two red things go together, the two orange things go together. And right now I'm just using a plugin that I have that I used in the original piece. It's called Red Giant Universe, and it's just adds some more light texture. And I put that on an adjustment layer so it affects all of the layers below it. And now I'm adding a noise texture. And there, that was pretty much it. And then I just put it into my conform and mark it red because it's the first one in my series. Okay, now I'm importing my next frame. I'm going to rename the pre-comp that comes with it automatically to match my conform marker. I'm going to trim it. And now I'm deleting layers again that I'll just re-import in After Effects. Copy and paste from the other pre-comp that I already made. Locking the layers I don't want to move. And now copying and pasting my hills into here. And so I had a little issue because I realized that the gradient that I used on the hills was 4 colors and not 3 colors, which you can't do in After Effects. So I just got rid of one of the colors. But then as I was doing that, I realized that the transparency on the gradient that I had was set to lighten, and it was at 50% opacity, which you can't do as an adjustment layer directly on the layer that you're trying to adjust. So I decided to delete those and then pre-comp my hills and do it as adjustment layers separately rather than directly on the layer themselves. So I could have levels, I could have my tritone as a different adjustment layer, and I can adjust the opacity that way. So I'm just remaking the Photoshop effects in After Effects in case I wanted to change them later. I wouldn't have to go back through and do them through Photoshop. And now I'm restructuring my folders because I realized I didn't want my pre-comps to get confused with my shots, so I made a render comps, which has my conform in it, build comps, which have all my shots in it, and pre-comps with folders corresponding to each build comp where I can keep my pre-comps. So I have my hills pre-comp in the shot that matches I think it was like shot 8 hills or something like that. Now I'm just making all of these 3D layers so I can move them back in Z-Space, so I can just animate the scene with a camera rather than trying to do it by hand in fake depth of field, because After Effects has a depth of field engine that will do it automatically for you. But in order for that to work, the layers need to be 3D and you need to move them in Z-Space. And now I'm just trying to get my Bordomatic in here so I can line up the hills to where they need to be to match my frame, because they got all weird. I have to change the scale because as the hills go further back, the scale gets smaller. So I'm just trying to match them up and line them up here. But then I realized I had to get rid of the Gaussian blur that I had on in Photoshop. And when I did that, it changed them for some reason and I had to realign them. And now I made my camera and I made a camera null and parented my camera to the null. And now I'm just gonna check on depth of field and it'll give me this box and you can adjust it. And so I'm looking from the top view where my focus is. And I'm changing my aperture so it's more sensitive and I can adjust it to match the Gaussian blur that I had on manually in Photoshop, but it's just doing it based on focus. Whatever's closest to the camera is blurry, whatever's further away is blurry, you know. I'm just gonna move my camera a little bit. You can sort of see how it's working. Adjusting my hills to get it to do what I want. Still playing around with my levels because I wasn't satisfied. Trying to center that type. And yeah, that was that frame, and now I'm gonna just put it into my conform And now I'm importing my next one, renaming it, deleting the layers I don't need, copying and pasting my adjustment layers so the effects look the same. Color coding so I know what order things go into. Going back and recoloring that one. I was still not satisfied with the hills, I guess. And now I'm back in my other comp and I'm just copying and pasting the people so they're all in my main pre-comp and not in these random ones that Photoshop makes based on groups. Renaming them so I know what's what. Creating text layers from my text layers in Photoshop. And redrawing the blobs because I'll be animating them again the same way that we did in the texture and stylization tutorial. Reordering my layers. Parenting the numbers to the blobs, so when I move the blobs, the numbers will go with them. And now I'm going to take my yellow paint texture I made, copy and paste it a few times, and just use a fill effect to change the color. And I'm going to do that for all of my colors. Now I'm going to take those effects and make them track mattes so with the blobs, so the blob shape layers have that texture that's already animated. And now I'm going to parent the blobs to the people that they go to and color code so I know which things belong to which. And then just reorder my layers. And now I'm going to make some of these layers shy layers, the ones that I won't need to animate, just to keep my timeline a little simpler. And that's that frame. Okay, so now I'm just making some folders to put my Illustrator import in, so I have them separate. I'm going to import my file. And something weird was happening, so the first thing I always do is empty my disk cache. And I did that and it still didn't work, but then when I deleted the layers it was fine, so I think it was something to do with the textures. And then I just reset this up similar to how I did it with my Photoshop files. I deleted the layers that I'm going to remake in After Effects and added all my effects and textures the same way. And so I'm creating shape layers, but it didn't really matter with my Illustrator file because I had to redraw them opposite anyways, because the blob worked better coming out from the center than the other way around. I have to remake my type in After Effects because you can't convert text to editable text from Illustrator to After Effects, but you can from Photoshop to After Effects. So that is a perk of working with Photoshop files. You don't have to remake your text layers in After Effects. So now I'm just going to redraw that shape layer again, just because the one that I have from Illustrator doesn't really work. I just copied and pasted it because it was easier, and renamed my comp to match my conform and put it in my timeline. After Effects crashed, but it's fine because it auto-saved. Adding my texture in like how I did in the Photoshop version by using a track matte in my shape layer. Adding my noise effect. Adding my light effect. Locking the layers and color coding. So that one's done. Now I'm going to import the next frame. And since in Illustrator I already saved each of the hills out as a PNG, I won't have to pre-comp them because the colors are built in to my Illustrator file. I could have done the same thing for Photoshop, but I wanted more flexibility of being able to control the color. And I'm making them 3D layers. I'm going to do the same thing and just set them all up in Z-Space. I have to open up Illustrator and get rid of the effects. And an important thing to note about working with Illustrator files is every single thing has to be on a separate layer in order for it to properly import into After Effects. If everything's on one layer or you have multiple artboards, you won't be able to edit it. So just moving them back in Z-Space. I'm going to line them up now based on my Bordomatic. I'm going to trim my comp. And now I'm going to line them up based on my Bordomatic. I'm just going to mess around with it a little bit. That corner got cut off because in After Effects, when you import Illustrator files, it makes it the same size as the whole entire artboard, but with Photoshop layers, it makes them the same size as the actual layer. And keeps the data that's outside of the artboard. So if my layer is bigger than my artboard in Photoshop, when you import that into After Effects, that little bit of corner is still there. I have my next Illustrator file, and this one's a little bit easier because it didn't put all of the people in separate pre-comps, so they're already all in there and I don't have to copy and paste them into my file. I'm going to trim my composition. I created shape layers from the vectors that were the blobs. Something annoying that I'll point out in a minute through Illustrator is when I converted my vectors to shape layers, it gave me a bunch of like random extra things in my content group, so I had to go into each one of them and delete them, which I thought was really annoying. And then I just had to reposition them on top of everybody after I deleted the random things that were in the shape layer when I converted them. Color coding, so I know what goes together. And now I'm going to import my textures that I made before and use them as track matte and parent them to the blobs. And that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna put it in my timeline and make sure I have my Boardomatic for reference in each of my pre-comps. Color code. And yeah, that's pretty much it.